Welcome, folks. Countdown to Seder night. Seder night. Last night was the final countdown for the Montreal Canadiens as they played their final game of the season. I have no idea what happened. I just know I went to give matzah to somebody, and he was going all dressed up as a Montreal Canadian fan. So here they call it Hockey Night in Canada. We call it, Seder night in Canada. Montreal Canadiens are out of the hockey, out of the playoffs. But Pesach Seder is never out of. It will always be there. It will always be there. So welcome. Actually, with that, I must tell you a story before we begin and go into the Haggadah. Share with you a story. It's actually a very touching one. And actually, you know what? You have to remind me. I'm going to tell you at the end. I'm going to tell you now. Oh, I can just make sure you stay with us. That's not why. I think it'll be more fitting at the end. That's why. I wouldn't create suspense just for the sake of suspense. So we welcome everybody, and whoever can watch us on YouTube, we particularly appreciate that because we're almost at the finish line. So that will help us tremendously. Appreciate.
It is on YouTube now. I clicked like.
Okay. Well, what can you watch it on another device? You have another device, watch it on YouTube at the same time, if possible. Okay. So this is our third part. We went through the first part, all the technicalities of having a kosher kitchen for Passover, all the other important elements in preparation for the holiday. Last week we went into the entire Haggadah, how we need to fulfill the mitzvahs technically. And that's very important, as we learn in Tanya, right, in chapters 35 through 37, that action, the deed, the tradition in its action, in its detailed manner of fulfillment, brings a connection to Hashem, fulfills the mitzvah. Today, the deed is of utmost importance. Not the feeling, not the sentiment, not the wow, but doing the mitzvah. So much so that if you ate matzah this coming Monday night, kind of half asleep, half aware that, it's Seder, okay, I'll eat whatever. It's a Seder, you're not feeling so well, you ate some matzah and then went to sleep. You fulfilled the mitzvah, whether your heart was there or not there, you fulfilled by the act of eating. So last week we spoke about all the actions we need to take at the Seder. Tonight we're going to speak about the deeper understanding of many of the traditions, many of the phrases and statements in the Haggadah. So let us begin. We're going to share the screen. Oops. Alrighty. Wrong one. No. There we go. Okay. So the Seder begins with the 15 different elements of the Haggadah, Kadesh, Kahadesh, Urchatz, Karpas, Yahachatz, Magid, Rahaksa, Maitzi, Matzah, Morar, Korech, Shulchan, Eirech, Sofa, Haim, Beirach, Halel, Nihir, Tzo. Each one is an element of the Seder that brings us to freedom. We're going out of Egypt. That is the theme. So the first thing, of course, Kaddish, and as we mentioned last week, we mentioned again, everybody has to fill up their cup.
Rabbi,
The
Yes.
screen, the screen
the
share,
screen is not showing.
it's showing video details like something from maybe YouTube or something.
New share. Okay. How's that?
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So the Kiddush again, everybody makes Kiddush. Kiddush means to sanctify. And we begin by sanctifying the holiday, right? Urchatz. Simple. It means just to wash your hands without a blessing. But urchatz, the concept of washing your hands is the idea of taking water to purify and your hands. Why your hands? Why you wash your hands? I mean, we understand when it comes to health, we wash our hands because our hands is what, is going to touch the food, or it's going to touch things. It's going to touch my mouth or anything else. So of course you want to have clean hands. Well, what do hands represent? Action. You take action with your hands, right? You can do an act of kindness by giving tzedakah, reaching out to somebody. So the first thing that we need to do in sanctifying ourselves, right? The first thing is we sanctify ourselves, we sanctify the day. And in that process of sanctification, orchatz, we need to wash. We need to take the water, it's water from a sink, but we pour. It's interesting. You can't take from the faucet and pour. You have to put it into a cup and then pour. Why not take it from the faucet? What's the difference? Sometimes I see people, okay, we're going to make a motzi, go wash your hands. And so people take some soap maybe and they can wash their hands. I mean, if that's the idea of cleanliness, then why not? And even in spiritual cleanliness, let's say it's spiritual cleanliness. So what's wrong? Why do you need to take the kvart and pour it with your hands over your hands? Follow the question? Question? Yeah, question's clear? So water is a metaphor for cleansing, like a mikveh made out of water, from water. Torah is also metaphorically like water. Water gives us, rejuvenates us, gives us vitality. As a matter of fact, I think I need some water. You're gonna have to excuse me a second. I'm gonna get a drink of water. I'm actually thirsty. Excuse me, my apologies. Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam shabarei. Chaim.
Amen.
Ah. So what you're taking is holy waters, if metaphorically, of course. You don't need to take holy waters that are not holy from your tap. But you're taking waters that represent the cleansing, waters that represent the Torah, that brings cleansing. And the reason why you have to put them into a cup and then pour over your hands is, first of all, it has to be your power. It has to power the person to do it. Not coming on its own from a tap. Means the power of the individual isn't there. We have to take the power of water, that's vitality, that's cleansing, that's Torah, and we have to ultimately pour it on our hands, which represents actions. That the Torah that we learn, the holiness that we attain, has to come to action, to our hands. In other words, it cannot suffice that it remains merely as an intellectual or philosophical engagement, something that, it's very intriguing, very interesting philosophically. But when it comes to action, it's meaningless. No, the Torah that we learn, the holiness that we engage in, which was Kadesh, right? Kadesh, and says Urchatz, which is interesting. All of the other 15 doesn't have a Vav that connects. Here it has a Vav. You see over here in Hebrew. Here's the word Urchatz. Rachatz means to cleanse, to wash. Urchatz means and wash. So we had before that Kadesh, Kahadesh, Urchatz. All the other ones, there's no Vav, and there's no Vav, which means and before a word. Before the word. Each one is a statement for itself. But this one, Kaddish, you want to sanctify yourself. You sanctify yourself, Orchatz, by washing, by taking the words, the Torah, the holiness of Torah. And you have to now, with your power, right? Not from the sink tap, but put into a kvort, and then pour it over your hands with your power. Take the holiness of the Torah and bring it into your life in a way that it's cleansing of your hands, meaning of your actions, that it affects you and changes your life. Is that clear? Yeah? Thumbs up, anybody? Thumbs down? All right. Great. We got some thumbs up. Beautiful. Okay. So then we come to karpas. Karpas, it is to take the vegetable, whether it's a potato. Chabad custom is primarily a small little piece of onion. You dip it into salt water, representing the tears of Jewish people in their hardship, right? So God never promised us a rose garden. So you want to sanctify yourself. You want to, you need to then take the teachings tonight and bring it in to your actions, to your hands, by cleansing them. And then when you do that, guess what? You're going to have challenges in life. You're going to have a bitter vegetable like an onion, dip into salt water, the tears, the Jewish people in Egypt. And with those difficulties, you'll be able to handle it. You'll actually make a blessing over it. You'll see a blessing in life. You'll see, I was today, just earlier, bringing matzah to somebody. So the wife just came from the hospital, or two parents, elderly parents. She herself is She's got elderly parents who got pneumonia at the same time, both in the hospital. And she's running ragged, understandably. And she's like depleted. And it's difficult. Of course, it's difficult. And so she said, I need a pickup. I need the strength. I need to be picked up and given the strength. So I said that, painful situation doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's painful and difficult. But when you know that life is a miracle, your life is a miracle, and you see the miracles in your life, you're focusing on that. And even though it might be bitter, it might be difficult and painful, but you'll be able to see the miracle, and not only see the miracle, you'll be the miracle. Oh, that just like took a like gave her life. Gave her life. Okay. We're good? We're good so far?
Mhm.
Yachatz. So yachatz is to break the middle matzah. The larger piece we put away for the afikomen. Chabad custom is we break it into 5. And the middle one is half a matzah, even a bit less than half a matzah. It's called lechem oini in the Torah. The Torah calls it lechem oni, the bread of affliction. And simple meaning, it's affliction because it's only half a matzah. In other words, it's a poor man's bread. Poor man only has half a loaf, not a full loaf. What's the idea of the half a matzah? Why would we be poor man's bread when tonight is going out of Egypt? Anybody remember from the class Torah studies a couple weeks ago? Hmm? Wait. Excuse me. So what do we explain? We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a moment. So there's a story with the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, that by his Seder, someone was like eyeing the matzah, which one's the small one, which one is the big. So he said, someone who needs to look so carefully to what's big or what's small, measuring so carefully who's big and who's small is not big and it's not small. Meaning, another instance I just had with a mother who was having difficulty with a son. And she's telling me Our other son, oh, he's amazing. He's so good. This one, I said, don't do that. Don't measure one against the other. Don't do it. For sure, don't express it to your children, but don't even think that way. Even though we're human and that's natural for us to think that way, don't do it. Because when you'll think that way, guess what's going to happen? You're going to act that way, right? So when you're pouring the waters of Torah on you, on your hands, to act properly, act in a sanctified way, you're not going. You won't act sanctified. Is that when you cut the middle matzah, and you got to measure which one's bigger, which one's smaller, which son is bigger, which one is smaller. Using that by way of metaphor. Don't measure things, even though you need to know which one's bigger or smaller. Okay, but don't make a thing out of it. Don't make who's the better one, who's the one that needs more help, and compare your children. Parents talk amongst themselves about their kids. My wife and I, in Ainahara, thank God, with 10 kids, of course you talk. But be careful not to make the comparison. So each one's unique, each one's different, each one has their needs, their things that they're lacking, and it's not something to be compared one to the other. So when you're measuring it, don't look for the, who's big, who's small. Just, I would say, that's yachatz. Magid. This is the introduction to the Seder. Magid is the two main mitzvahs of the night. The two biblical mitzvahs are eating matzah and saying over the Haggadah, or saying over at least the story of going out of Egypt. All right. Is a biblical mitzvah. So here's the introductory paragraph. This is the bread of affliction that our ancestors ate in the land of Egypt. Whoever is hungry, come eat with us. Whoever is needy, come join our Seder. This year we are here. Next year in the land of Israel. This year we are slaves. Next year we will be free. Anybody have any questions on this? Any thoughts, any comments, any issues? No? So, what do you mean that this is the bread of affliction? You're showing the half a matzah that's on your Seder plate. This is the bread of affliction. Okay, we understand it's only half a matzah, but this is like the bread of affliction. So some Haggadahs say this is like the bread of affliction. They don't say that this is the bread of affliction. Why do we say that this is the bread of affliction in the Chabad Haggadah? Not just the Chabad, others also. But why would we say that? Because tonight we are to experience going out of Egypt in a personal way. Going out of Egypt, Mitzrayim in Hebrew comes from Meitzar, limitations, straits, the Nile Straits, right? We all are in straits. We are all live in a box. And tonight we have to go out of that box called Egypt, Mitzrayim, and therefore experience the Exodus. And therefore, in that sense, this is the bread of affliction that our ancestors ate. Meaning, to get out of Egypt is something that we mentioned earlier. Why is it a poor man's bread when we are going out of Egypt? Is because, as we explained, matzah has to be made by something that could become leavened. And we have to prevent it from becoming leavened. Meaning, it can't ferment, It has to be water and flour from the beginning process until it's completely thoroughly baked, maximum 18 minutes. Takes, much less than that, but maximum 18 minutes. But that's fermentation. Fermentation meaning as the ego sets in. That's what the fermented matzah means. So you want to go out of Egypt, you want to get out of your limitations. It's not going to be with a haughtiness, with a sense of an inflated ego of your specialness. But it's going to become with the humility, with the bittul that a person has. And then they'll be able to get out of Egypt. Who is hungry? Come and eat. What do you mean, who's hungry? Inviting people now? First of all, you're not even serving food now. So what are you coming now? It's like a false pretense. Yeah. No one's coming. First of all, no one's coming now. You're sitting at the table. Only the people around there are coming. They're there already. So you're making a big announcement at your Seder table. Whoever's hungry, come and eat. Yeah, and you're not even serving anything. The only thing you just served was a piece of onion and salt water. Doesn't sound very inviting. So whoever is hungry for Torah, whoever is hungry to grow and to connect to Hashem, Kaddish, to become sanctified, to become what you need to become, right? Whoever is needing, come to the Seder. Now you're here, but next year you're going to be in the land of Israel. Now you're slaves, meaning we live in the box called Golus, exile. Next year we'll be free because Mashiach will be here. So this is the first paragraph that kind of gives us a framework for the entire Haggadah. Any questions? No? We're all good. Actually, you're not good. You're all great. At least those that I see for sure. The rest of you, I hope you're there because you're great and not to be there.
Rabbi,
Yes.
what about the egg in the salt water?
That's later.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's the first thing you eat at the meal.
right.
We're not there
Okay.
yet. We just
Okay.
invited people to the meal, and we're just going to give them
All right, sorry.
Torah.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay.
No problem. We'll get there. We'll get there. I listen. I know everybody's already hungry. Everybody's hungry. Yeah.
Rabbi,
Yes.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Might not be relevant for now, but what if the three matzahs we break doesn't break into two pieces? It breaks into three or more pieces.
So we use 5 pieces for the afikoman. That's a Chabad custom. So take from that and use it, and break it into 5.
Okay.
If it breaks it, if it doesn't break, equally or not equally, whatever, into 2. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So then you can use that for the afikoman. You just need one smaller than 50% for the middle matzah that remains, and the rest is for the afikoman. Very good.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome. All right. Okay. So that's a hilachmanya. Then we come to the manishtana. Manishtana halayla hazeh mikol halaylos. Okay, so I think we should do this. I think, we're gonna ask the youngest one here to do the Manishtana. Who wants to be the youngest? Devorah Chana, I think you might be the youngest here.
No, actually, I think I'm the oldest.
I was just joking. I'm just joking. You're just in between,
Well, I have white
I
hair.
think we'll give Henry. I think Henry's the youngest here. Henry, are you hiding behind your name? Do you stand by your name, Henry? Look at that. He doesn't want to answer.
I'm actually on the YouTube. I'm on the YouTube.
No, but I mean, you're here too. You're here too, no? Henry, I think you're the youngest here.
There's a delay here. It's not working.
It's not working. Gotcha. Okay. Okay. So Henry is going to be by our Seder. Him and his wife and his two children, they're going to be by the Seder. So his children are too young. One is just a newborn, couple months. Another one is just over a year and something. So I don't think she's going to be asking the Manishtana. But Henry and Hamid is also going to be at the Seder, and David's going to be at the Seder, and Menachem Hillel is going to be at the Seder here, over here. Denis is going to be at the Seder. And who else is going to come to Montreal to join us? Anyway, so get ready your Manishtana. So Chabad custom is different than others. The first Manishtana is on all other nights, we don't go dipping vegetables before we start the meal. But tonight we do so. Oops. We end up dipping twice. One time in salt water and the other time in charosis. Right? On all other nights, we eat chametz or eat matzah. Tonight, everything is matzah. All other nights, we eat all sorts of vegetables. Tonight, we make a big deal of eating bitter vegetables. On all other nights, we sit or we lean. Tonight, when we drink wine and eat matzah, everyone's leaning. Oh, I'll stretch my legs for a moment. So, all other Haggadah, many Haggadahs, not all of them, the first of the Manishtana is chametz and matzah. Eating matzah, because that's the biblical law. It's the first thing mentioned. In ours, it's about dipping. Now, on one level, the reason is because what the child sees first is dipping, right? Because we already dipped. We took the onion or the potato, the karpas, and we dipped it into salt water, right? And we got a teary eye from that onion. Right? So that's something they saw. But that can't be the real answer. Is why? Well, because they didn't see us eat matzah yet. We didn't eat bitter herbs yet. That's going to be later on, right? And we did lean, though, right? When did we lean? When did we lean so far? Anybody?
When drinking the wine.
Right. Drinking the first cup of wine, we already leaned. So
Yeah.
the child saw dipping in salt water, not in charosis, but in salt water, at least that, right? So, of course, I mean, the sages set this up. So it's not by literally what they saw, but it's what they will see. And therefore, these are the questions that they're asking. So why do we start off with the dipping? So the Rebbe points out something there's a lesson to be taken out of this. This is not the reason so much, but a lesson. And that is, this is a custom. And it's a custom or the dipping into the carpets in salt water is really to arouse a child to ask questions. And this should be, children's night, which people get, all families get that, focuses on the children. I'm very excited that this year I'm going to have a bunch of grandchildren at our table, something that, we generally don't have because our kids are out of town. And some of them have obligations to have people at their Seder, so they can't come to our Seder because they run a Chabad house. Or sometimes they're just, elsewhere. So we begin with that which is a custom of dipping. It's not, it's not a law. For example, if you miss that part, it's not the end of the world. Especially, people are going to start their Seder early. If you did this before nightfall, which really the Seder should only begin at nightfall, but if this was done, everything should be done after nightfall, which Montreal is going to be like 8:40, and most places be around that time. It's only a custom, matzah, you make sure you eat after nightfall. Don't eat it beforehand. Otherwise, you got to eat it again after nightfall. The point being over here is this is a custom. And we start off with a custom. You might think, well, a custom, it's not as valuable, not as important as a biblical law or even a rabbinic law. No, customs are very important. And to keep the customs that you have, as me as a Chabadnik, to keep Chabad customs is crucially important. Why? Because it shows the love and the devotion that you have for Yiddishkeit, for the mitzvah, for, being a Lubavitcher, being a chassid of the Rebbe, that you are, engaged in a detailed manner and caring manner about a custom. You're not just, okay, it's only a custom, big deal, we don't have to give such attention to it. When you give attention to the things that are not sort of like carry so much weight, but just by the virtue it's a custom and you want to fulfill this Jewish custom, it shows an endearment, it shows a love that you have, that you're devoted to this with a fervor, with a love. And that's what it shows. That's what Rebbe said. It's a lesson we take out from this. It's not the reason, it's a lesson.
Rabbi,
Yes.
I have a question. With regards to the Manish Tema song, when exactly do we start singing it? Is it before or is it after?
Before or after what?
The
I mean,
dipping,
you're following the Haggadah. So wherever you are in the Haggadah, you're following. So I'm not clear what
okay.
it's before the page that it's before the page that comes after it, and it's after the page that's before it.
I was under the impression.
Sorry to give such a simple answer, but I'm not certain any other. I'm not certain what you mean.
I was assuming that, before we did the vegetable into salt water, before we dipped the vegetable,
we did the salt. We're going in order here. We did this. Kadesh orchatz karpas yachatz. Right?
Right.
Magid, we're up to Magid. Right? In Magid, in telling the story, first we had Leilach Manya, this is the bread of our affliction. And then we start telling the story after having that phrase, that one paragraph that kind of gives a structure for the story of going out of Egypt, right? That this is the bread of affliction. So it's a personal, Yetzias Mitzrayim, going out of our personal Egypt. Right.
Yeah.
Now we're here. Next year we'll be in Israel. Now we're slaves. Next year we'll be free, right? In
Yeah.
times of Mashiach. So now that we said that, now we start with a manishtana because we start with the questions. From the questions, then we come to the answers.
Right.
Okay, does that make sense? That order makes sense now? Beautiful.
Yes, Rabbi. Thank you.
Beautiful. Okay, so we start with the answer. And we start off as slaves in Pharaoh in Egypt until God liberated us from, with a strong hand and outstretched arm, basically. A lot of big miracles, right? A lot of big miracles. God took us out. Miracles, miracles, miracles. Folks, miracles. We got to see the miracles. I don't believe in miracles. I depend on them. And miracles are abound. Miracles are abound. Got it. God takes us out with an outstretched arm. Does God have an outstretched arm? Tim, does God have an outstretched arm? Why are you smiling? Stop smiling and answer my question.
Metaphorically, yes.
Tim, could you stretch your arm, please? I see you stretch your arms. Oh, okay. So Tim has an outstretched arm. Yeah? So metaphorically, God has an outstretched arm. So if you were to look up in a dictionary, arm, so one of the definitions it will give you is like Tim's arm that he, a physical arm with flesh and skin and so on, that has the capacity of movement into reaching, right? But then another word for arm will be like an arm of a robot, or an arm of a some kind of machine that has an arm to it, right? It's not made from flesh and blood. So maybe, Tim, your arm is not real. Maybe the one on the robot is. Or how about, I've told the story before, and it's my dear friend Rabbi Manis Friedman told the story of his granddaughter who had a little doll and the arm fell off, and he says to her, "Oh, you must be sad." She says, "No, it's only plastic." So you're thinking, oh, so it's not a real arm, you mean? And this is a real arm? Maybe this is not a real arm. Maybe the arm on that big, that big truck that takes an arm and picks up so much dirt to excavate. It's a stronger arm than mine. It reaches much further than my arm doesn't, right? And it can last maybe longer than 120. Who knows? Maybe that's a real arm. Or maybe God really does have an outstretched arm, because an arm, right, just means that you have the capacity to reach out. So God has a capacity to reach out. Actually, more than the baby doll, more than my arm, more than the arm of a tractor trailer, that's excavating. So God has the real arm. Ours are facsimiles of his. So when it says that God stretched his arm, it doesn't mean a physical arm. It doesn't mean stretching and his ligaments. It doesn't even mean a tractor trailer that can stretch across the road and dig very deep excavation. God can do that, much more. His arm is not limited. His arm is stretched out, though, and stretched out to redeem us. So we were slaves, and God, who has the real arm, ours is only a facsimile to his, with a strong hand and an outstretched arm. meaning he did lots of miracles. Because, and not just lots of miracles, when you reach your arm to someone to like grab onto them and move them from harm, it shows how much you care for that person. So Hashem, such a charm, he brought us from the depths of slavery, the depths of exile in Egypt, and schlepped us out of there. And schlepped us out of there. So there's a lot to be thankful for and to give thanks. How thankful should you be? Well, just let's give an example. How much you should engage in that, and the night of the Seder night, how much should you engage in the Haggadah? This is an instance where the 5 great rabbis were sitting in the Seder in Bnei Brak the whole night telling the story of the liberation from Egypt. The rabbis, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Tarfon. They didn't stop until their students arrived and said, our teachers, it's already time to say the morning Shema. Right? So, in other words, they're so into it. So, you got to be into it, focused. Yes, the food will come, don't worry. But it's not, it's about the food that we're going to eat, right? That's going to nourish us, the spiritual food of the Haggadah. That's going to be very nourishing. Oh my gosh, I realize. Then we come. Torah is so concerned that we get this story across. It tells 4 different ways to tell 4 different kinds of kids this story. One is bright, inquisitive kind of kid, acquisitive kind. One is temporarily wicked. One is simple, and one doesn't just know how to ask. So we're learning a mimer now in the mornings. The bright one, what is a chacham? Mahu, what does he say? Actually, in Hebrew, chacham mahu. Chacham, what is he? Oimer, what he says. How do you know if someone is wise? Listen to what they say. Hear what they talk about. What are the statutory laws? Not to say, the testimonies, like Shabbos is a testifying of the oneness of God, Tefillin, the oneness of God. Chukim, those are laws that are statutory laws that are beyond logic, like the red heifer, or like we're learning about a mitzvah about leprosy, right? Skin disease, or today on the bricks of your home. Mishpatim in the ordinances, the laws that are rational, like laws of theft, laws of business. And God, our God has commanded you, right? You should say them Pesach, like the laws of Pesach. You don't eat anything after the Afikomen. Later on, when we're going to eat the matzah that we put away, we don't eat anything after it. Now, if you tell them everything till the very end. So the Rebbe asks a question. We are learning the Maimer this in the morning. Some of you are there 7:05. Tim, what's that? 5:05 for you?
6:05.
You're only an hour difference?
Again.
Wow, okay. All right. So he's asking, if he's a wise son, doesn't he know the laws? Why is he asking what the laws are? So we explain in the Mimer, he's asking the question, well, there's different nuance, different layers in this. First layer is first way to understand this is he's asking, why do we have different types of mitzvahs? Aren't all mitzvahs there because God told us to do it? So why do we have rational mitzvahs, mitzvahs edus? They're all because God so declared. The Rebbe isn't satisfied with that explanation because then the order doesn't make sense. Why is edus first? Right? Because if you're going from rational are mishpatim, then those that have a rationality to them, but are only because the Torah told us about Shabbos, so there's a rationality that we can appreciate and understand. And then there's chukim like red heifer and the laws of Mitzvah, right, that are way beyond. So that would be the order, either mishpatim edus chukim or chukim edus mishpatim. But here comes first edus. So Rebbe explains, it's questions like this. He doesn't understand. With Tanya, by the way. Edus are laws that testify in the oneness of God. The oneness of God, on the essence of God, actually, as we explained in the Mimer. Chukim is laws that are beyond rationale. But beyond rationale means you are beyond it, but you're relative to it. Right? It's encompassing that which you're beyond. And then there's the laws that are rational, that they are something that, the mind understands and perceives. They're not beyond us. They are enclosed within us. So these three mitzvahs types of mitzvahs represent three types of different awareness of God, of God's presence in creation and in our lives. There's a way God fills the world and that we perceive him, right? As we perceive, for example, in, beautiful flower bed, we perceive the presence of God, right? We perceive, and when we understand something of, the way the sun and the moon evolve and so on, and you understand that, and you see, wow, you understand the body, right? The way it works, the precision in it. That's the way God fills the world. And then there's, of course, the awareness of the teachings of Torah and how the divine energy of God fills the world, and you understand that as we learn in Chassidus. Then there's that which beyond your understanding. But yet, you kind of sense it. You sense the power of that which is beyond. You sense, not that you know what it is, but you know that there's something there that's beyond. Right? When you sense God's presence in the world, you know that there's something also beyond that we can, grasp with our minds, that we can sense with our, inwardly, and there's something beyond. Then there is the essence of God. The essence of God, you can't say he's beyond, because he's beyond being beyond. Saying he's beyond means he's relative to that which he's being beyond. And God is beyond all kind of, reference point or making something comparable or comparable to. Right? So we have the essence of God is Edus is the first thing. God that he encompasses the world is the second level. Chukim. And then God, the way he is enclosed and perceivable within the world, right? That we can have some sense of his presence in the world, is Mishpatim. And that's the order over here. So his question is like this. How could it be that God, that God says that we can connect to him through the mitzvahs we do? Okay, God can do whatever he wants. He says that when you put on these letter boxes every morning, you connect to me. When you take a coin to charity and give it to in a charity box, not even to a poor person yet, right? It'll get to the institution, it'll get to the poor person, it'll get to, wherever the need is. And you have a bond and a connection to me. God said so he can create that reality. But that I should be illuminated by me, that it should experience, that I should have some sense of it, some experience of it. That's a Chacham's question. How can I experience something? It's too lofty, it's too great, it's too beyond. Right? And how do I experience it? That's his question. And that's why he says, yeah. What's the answer? Well, the answer in the Mimer is based on the verse in the Torah, which is a whole other discussion, because in the Torah it doesn't give this answer. In the Torah it says that God has commanded, hold on, no, it's in Deuteronomy. Hold on. Oh, here it is. The answer is, and you will say to your son, we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, and he took us out from Egypt. And Hashem commanded us to do all these statutory chukim laws. Yeah. So the answer in the Torah is different than the Haggadah. Based on what I just said, I don't know how the answer over here ties in. It seems like the question is a bit different here, the way I have to look that up to see. But in the Torah is that the reason why you can experience it is because when you do something beyond reason, not for a human reason of your self-fulfillment or your self-glorification or your comfort or your joy, but you do it to connect with Hashem, Hashem will make that mitzvah that you do, that'll be illuminated and full of life. And it'll have wings that will soar. I'll leave it at that for now. Now the temporary wicked son, temporary. Why is he temporarily wicked? Anybody? No one? Because in the end, everybody's going to do tshuva. Everybody's going to come home. Everybody's going to do and get it right eventually. That's going to happen. No, it's only temporary. Now, it might be a person's whole lifetime and they have to come back and be reincarnated. That's true. But, you know, God's got a very, forward look, a distant view of things. And it does have to be in our lifetime. Rasha Mawoimer, the wicked son, what does he say? Why do you people do all this? He says, you people excluding himself. He's denying the basis in the entire Seder. We are one people. How can you celebrate Passover if there's no Jewish people? So you blunt his argument. You quote the verse. It's because of this that God did all of these things for me when I left Egypt. If he's excluding himself already, he's excluding himself from leaving Egypt. Or had he been there, he would never have been liberated. So we're speaking very harsh to him. You wouldn't have been liberated if you were in Egypt. And how does a Chabadnik speak so harshly to a fellow Jew? So the Rebbe explains, and what we're saying is, with the attitude that you have, if you would have been in Egypt, you wouldn't have been redeemed. Because there in Egypt, what defined a Jew was your allegiance to God and your allegiance to Jewish people. While you're excluding yourself from the Jewish people, doesn't look like you have too much interest in God. And therefore, with such an attitude in the time of Egypt, you would not have been redeemed. But now it's after being in Egypt. We have since been at the foot of Mount Sinai, received the Torah, became a nation, and not only became a nation, but the Jew became defined and sanctified by being endowed by a divine Jewish soul. And that's what defines us as a Jew. That's what defines us as the person that we are. We're not a person and a Jew. We're a Jew that happens to be a person. No, don't worry. There's no Jewish dogs. Even though Shimon Leib might think that his dog that he brings to synagogue often sits in the hole, gives him an opportunity to walk his dog and to do some exercise since he's a very young man. So staying young because he comes to Chabad. So we're saying to him, if you would have been with this attitude in Egypt, you wouldn't have been redeemed. But now, since the giving of the Torah, what defines a Jew is not their allegiance. Defines a Jew is not their belief. What defines a Jew is their soul. And you have a Jewish soul. And therefore, you will be redeemed in this exile. No one will be left behind. Everybody will eventually do tshuva. Everybody will get their act together. So you too. Why do we say it in the negative? Because sometimes a person needs a good, wake up call, a good little, little push to make sure that they hear the message well. Any questions, any comments, any thoughts? Anybody taking notes? Taking note? Taking note?
I do take notes. I take notes in Tanya also.
All right, so you might have to share it with everybody. Great, great. All right. That is the Russia. The simple one. Well, he just sits there in total amazement and says, "What is this? So tell me about the amazing miracles. Along with the mighty hand, God took us out of Egypt when we were slaves." So sometimes the Rebbe Rashav, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he once extolled the simple son. There's something sometimes about simplicity that you just sense something greater. You sense a oneness. And you just everything is wow. Is wow. It's a miracle. Simply a miracle. Then there's one who doesn't know how to ask. You got to start for them. Okay. Okay. The essentials of the Seder. Rabbi Gamliel used to say that anyone who didn't mention the following three things on Passover didn't really do the Seder night. This make sure you do after nightfall. It's actually before eating the matzah, so yeah. The Pesach offering of the ancestors ate in time when the Holy Temple was standing. What is it all about? It's because Pesach means to skip over. The one who encompasses everything skipped over our ancestors' houses in Egypt. When we were about to leave Egypt, Moses told us how to explain eating matzah on Pesach to future generations. He said, "You shall say this Pesach offering to God, because he skipped over the houses of the children of Egypt, children of Israel in Egypt, rather, children of Israel in Egypt, when he struck the Egyptians with a plague and saved our houses." And the people bowed and prostrated themselves. Matzah that we eat, what is it all about? It's because the dough, our ancestors didn't have time to let it rise. And suddenly a king of kings, told them, blessed be he, revealed himself to them and liberated them. Just like it says in the story, they baked matzah from the dough that they had brought out of Egypt because it hadn't become chametz, because they had been chased out of Egypt and didn't have a chance to stick around waiting for the dough to rise. They didn't even have time to pack anything else to eat. And the final thing, maror, and this vegetable that we eat, what is it about? It's because Egyptians embittered the lives of the ancestors in Egypt, just like it says in the story. They embittered their lives with hard work, with mortar, with bricks, and all kinds of work. Everything they made them to do was to break them. And that is three essentials. Make sure you say that. And in every single generation, every person has to see himself, him or herself, as though he or she actually left Egypt. That's what we have to do. We have to leave Egypt. Then we come drink the second cup of wine, reclining on our left side. And then we got to go wash our hands to make a motzi. And then the bitter herbs. We have to make two blessings on the motzi, one for the bread and one for the mitzvah of eating matzah. Right? There's a motzi lachem min haaretz is for eating. That it is a bread, unleavened bread, but bread, right? And then you make a bracha for the mitzvah because we're doing a mitzvah of eating matzah, reclining on your left side, and should eat approximately close to half a matzah, a bit less of a hand-baked shmur matzah I'm talking about, a bit less than half a matzah. I think it's 30 grams if I remember correctly. And reclining your left side and do it within 6 minutes. and we eat the maror, bitter herbs. We don't recline, then we eat the sandwich, or the hillel, as I call it. Then we eat the meal, and there, Chana, Devar Chana, the first thing we eat, we
Is the egg in the salt water.
egg and dip it in some water. Didn't want to miss that. And at that point, we're all stuffed. Because all that matzah, all of that maror, 2 cups of wine, and now you had an egg. Oh, it's a lot. Then after the meal, tzafan, we eat the afikomen, reclining on our left side. It should be done before Jewish midnight. Jewish midnight is around, in Montreal, will be around 10 to 1 in the morning. Then you finish Halal Nirza, and voila. By us, it's usually between around 1:30 in the morning, sometimes later, that we finish. And it's sublime. Any questions, any thoughts, any comments? We're all good? No, you're all great. All right. We're looking forward to all the guests that were going to come to us. If anybody still wants to fly into Montreal, let us know. We'll love to have you. All right, folks. Gute Nacht.
Thank you.
Laila Tov.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Laila Tov, Rabbi. Thank you so much.
Thank
you.
you.
God bless.
Have a good night.